a lot of what I've learned through Peter has in some ways been, by proxy, in that the things that I've learned from Keith and from folks like Trey Stevens have been things that they, sort of learned, sort of from Peter. And so, in some ways, the answer of the best things that I've learned from Keith in some ways is the same answer as the best things that I've learned from Peter, since Keith himself, learned it from him. I think I always go back to the sort of early Keith and Peter conversations they had around PayPal, which was sort of the need to bet on unproven talent, where sort of fundamentally when somebody's sort of late stage in their career, everybody can sort of underwrite what their capabilities are and what their prior experiences will enable them to do. And as a startup, you can't really afford to sort of compete against the Facebooks, the Googles, et cetera, of the world against sort of perfectly priced assets, given that your cost of capital is much higher than the sort of cost of capital for these mega cap companies. And so I think I've sort of seen that sort of play out both across the investments that I've made, the companies that I've started, and who we've decided to sort of focus on and hire, and in some ways even my own career in some ways was sort of proof in the pudding of sort of people sort of betting on me sort of early on, and me taking that to heart and being very grateful for it, and I think sort of taking advantage of the sort of situations that I was sort of put into. So yeah, that's probably the sort of single, I feel like sort of biggest thing that I've learned from Peter. I think there's some amount of just like sort of seeing how much time he spends on just constantly engaging with deep thinkers in other fields as a way to advance his own thinking, right? I think one thing that I sometimes like to sort of point out is I think Peter's obviously sort of very well known for a lot of the very public talks that he gives. And I think what I found fascinating is, as I've gotten to know him, is like, in some ways, when you're, in the public, you just see the like, sort of finished, sort of polished product. But in process, in some ways, the way that Peter, sort of chews on or toys with his ideas, I feel like is he actually just brings them up a lot in like private dinners, but to, sort of people that are very, well respected and competent in their own fields, and in some ways uses that as a, sort of iteration, sort of mechanism, so that by the time an idea is making it out into the sort of public world that is sort of highly polished, it's been sort of chewed on by some of the world experts across so many different sort of types of fields. And so I think that whole sort of exposure that he consistently seems to give himself, as well as the way that he iterates through ideas, is probably one of the more it's not a high level startup or business sort of strategy in some ways, but like the sort of appreciation for sort of learning through sort of osmosis. I feel like it's been a sort of tactical learning.